So you want her to see you. You want her to admire you. You want her to look at you with this kind of reverence that says, I feel safe with you, or I trust you. But here's the thing that not many will tell you, I think, and that's respect does not come from being liked. Respect comes from being real. So if you're constantly chasing her approval, if you're bending your truth to stay in her good graces, then you're not really earning her respect, I think. You're actually eroding it. You see, no one can respect a man who won't even stand solidly in his own truth. But there's a difference between respect and approval. Respect is quieter, I think. It's solid, it's rooted, and it's built when someone sees who you really are and admires the integrity that it takes to be that person, even when it's inconvenience. Whereas approval is louder, it's sweeter, it's more addictive. And approval says, you're doing what I want, so I like you right now, basically. It feels good until it owns you, until you find yourself molding and morphing and performing, not because it's true to who you are, but because it keeps you close to her. And that's when you start to lose not only her respect, but your own as well. See, the moment it starts, it usually starts in a really small way. You don't speak up when something bothers you, for example, or you're agreeing to keep the peace, or you're complimenting her when all you really want to do is to ask her for more presence or more honesty or even more respect. And so you tell yourself that you're just being easygoing, that you're avoiding unnecessary conflict, right? That it's not really worth making a big deal out of. But every time that you silence your truth to gain her favor, you're teaching her and yourself that your voice doesn't really matter. And that pattern always backfires. Because the more that you try to earn love through approval, the less lovable you feel. And the less that she respects the version of you that keeps hiding behind that veil of politeness. See, there's a point when approval starts becoming an addiction, okay? At first, approval feels like a strategy of sorts. You think, if I'm nice enough, or if I don't rock the boat enough, if I always say the right thing, maybe then she'll stay. Maybe then she'll love you. Maybe then she'll finally feel secure around you. But approval is not love, is it? Approval it's like a performance or a contract, like an invisible rule that says, I'll keep pretending if you keep affirming me. And like all addictions, it eventually consumes you. And you find yourself anticipating her moods, or adjusting your tone, or avoiding anything that might make her feel uncomfortable. And you're doing this not because it's kind, but because you're afraid. Afraid that she'll leave. Afraid that she'll be disappointed. Afraid that she'll finally see the parts of you that you really haven't had a chance to make peace with yet. And so you hide. And here's the problem. No one can truly love a man who is always hiding. Because love is not built on masks, right? Love is built on mutual recognition. And how can she recognize you when you never actually bring your real self to the table? I mean, yeah. What respect actually looks like is this. I think respect it's not born from being agreeable, but it's born from being anchored. And when you're able to say no, gently and clearly and unapologetically, well, that earns respect. When you share an unpopular truth with calmness and with care, that earns respect. When you stop shrinking to avoid rejection and instead start standing in who you are, even when it's uncomfortable, that earns respect. Because Real respect does not come from making someone happy, okay? Real respect comes from being someone who is whole. And wholeness includes edges. It includes differences. It includes moments where you might not be understood, but you still stay grounded anyway. See, she might not like everything that you say, but if she can trust your consistency or your clarity or your self-respect, then she'll respect you. And that respect becomes the very foundation of real intimacy. See, there's also this other aspect, the hidden anger beneath the approval seeking. A man who's constantly seeking approval often doesn't realize how angry he might be, because beneath the smiling and the nodding and the accommodating, beneath all these surfaces, there's this slow burn that's happening. And you don't get angry at her necessarily, it's that you get angry at yourself. You get angry at yourself for abandoning your truth, and you get angry at yourself for performing again, for trading your self-respect for a moment of validation. And over time, that anger continues to build, and it turns into this quiet resentment, into a bitterness, into a distance. And she starts to feel it, even if you never say it. She feels the disconnection. She feels like the lack of depth. She feels like the loss of polarity, because respect cannot exist without a firm sense of self. And eventually, she'll most likely pull away, not because she's cold, not because she's cruel, but because she doesn't know who she's supposed to be connecting with anymore. But there's freedom from fear, and it can begin here, right? This is where the shift really initiates. When you realize that fear has been driving your desire to please, for example, and when you can finally start making different choices because you understand that that's fear, we're getting somewhere. Like, you can actually begin to practice boundaries or implementing boundaries, not to punish, but to protect what is true. And you can start letting go of approval, not out of arrogance, but out of honoring yourself. And you can speak your mind, not to dominate, but to participate in what a relationship with back and forth looks like. This is the heart of the Freedom from Fear series that I've been working on, where there's no more hiding, and there's no more begging, and there's no more trading your soul just for a moment of a smile. But you have your truth and your presence and your wholeness. And that's when respect finds its way back. Not because, again, you demanded it, but because you became the kind of man who lives it. Rebuilding self-respect is a really important part of this work. You see, you can't ask someone to respect you when you haven't made peace with yourself yet. And that's not shame. That's truth. Because real respect from others and from yourself begins with that respect that you have for yourself internally. And self-respect isn't about swagger or success. It's about it's not about having money or muscles or the perfect masculine energy, but it's about how you treat yourself in the quiet. It's about what you say when you're alone inside your own head. It's about whether you're abandoning yourself to keep someone comfortable or not. It's about the decisions that you're making, the ones that no one sees, that either honor your truth or erode your core. And when you consistently betray your own values, when you sell your peace to buy just a moment or two of her approval, that's when you start feeling that sense of hollowness, not just in the relationship, but also in your own skin. That's where so many men find themselves stuck, right? See, they want her to see them, but they don't know how to see themselves anymore. But there's a way to recover from this performance trap that so many have been stuck in. See, performance is shaky, it's sneaky, it's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle. Oftentimes it's even praised. in such phrases as, "You're such a good guy," or "You're so easy to talk to," or "You're always so calm and agreeable." And so you take pride in that until you realize that those compliments weren't really about you, because they're about the version of you that never disagrees, the version of you that never rocks the boat, the one that never makes anyone else feel uncomfortable. But the real relationships aren't built on that kind of performance. They're actually built on you being present and real. And presence to me means saying what you actually mean, and sharing how you actually feel, and taking up the emotional space that is rightfully yours, not by force, but by right. It's when you stop performing that you risk more. And you might not be liked as easily, but at least you begin to feel something that's deeper than approval could have offered. You begin to feel that real sense of authenticity deep within. You begin to feel like you can be seen for who you truly are, and that changes like everything. But here's how she sort of experiences you when you're in that begging for approval season, okay? Here's what most men, I think, don't realize. When you're constantly seeking approval, you're putting pressure on her. Not just emotional pressure, but relational pressure, this burden in the relationship. And so, in essence, you're forcing her into the role of the validator. You're making her the one who's responsible for your self-worth. And that's not attraction, that's emotional labor. See, she starts to feel smothered, not because you're unkind, but because you're not anchored. See, she can't lean into you because you're already leaning too hard into her. And respect requires space. It requires boundaries. It requires the ability to hold yourself so that she's free to relax and not constantly have to hold you. See, if she's always worried about how her moods and her feedback and her energy will affect your entire sense of self, she's not going to feel safe. And when she doesn't feel safe, she's not going to feel desire in that connection. She won't feel admiration. She won't feel respect, even if she still cares for you. But here's what the path back looks like. It looks like choosing self-alignment over approval externally. How do you do this? Well, stop chasing applause, for starters. Start instead listening to your own alignments and ask yourself, is this true for me? Or am I speaking from conviction or fear? Would I still say this if no one rewarded me for it? And as you ask yourself those questions, then act from that truth. Not because it guarantees an outcome, but because it grounds you. And when you are grounded, you become a source of gravity, not grasping. And you attract respect not by force, but by presence. And you repel those who don't value realness, which is a gift in itself, because you're no longer trying to win people who only loved your performance, right? And so in essence, you're building something that's far better. And that's this life that's rooted in your truth, and a relationship that's rooted in mutual trust, a self-worth that doesn't vanish the moment someone frowns, right? But reclaiming respect without needing permission is a really important part of this work. See, you don't have to wait for someone else to hand you your dignity. Instead, you can reclaim it. You reclaim it when you stop filtering every word. When you stop asking, will she still want me if I say this, right? And instead, you start asking, can I still want myself if I don't say this? See, that shift is powerful. That shift is substantial. Because the moment you begin to prioritize self-honesty over external approval is the moment that you start feeling your backbone starts realigning. You stand taller, you speak clearer, you stop chasing. You stop chasing, especially that connection that once had you depending on her. And she'll feel that difference. Whether she can hold it or not, at least you'll be able to hold you, right? And that's the foundation of this trust that we're talking about. That's the ground from which respect really grows. And that's the man that you're becoming. See, she wants truth, but not a theater, okay? So you might think that she'll leave if you stop pleasing her. And I can't promise you that she's gonna stay. She might leave, that's a possibility. But if she only stayed for the mask that you were wearing, then it was never intimacy. It was actually dependency. And you weren't truly loved. You were actually just tolerated, conditionally accepted, if you will. See, she may have loved the man who never disagreed, or the one who never stood firm, or the one who always smiled even when they were hurting. But deep down, you already know that man was not you, right? And you're done selling yourself for scraps of someone else's affection. Because you're not building a life on flattery and fear. You're building a life that's based on freedom. And freedom begins when you finally let go of needing to be chosen by someone else who can't love you fully. Because you're choosing you now. You're your focus. The heart of this Freedom from Fear series, this is the significant shift that we're making, not just in this episode that I'm recording now, but in everything that we'll be creating together. See, freedom from fear is not about becoming invulnerable. It's about becoming honest. It's about noticing where fear has been steering your life, and then gently taking back the wheel in relationships, in communication, in the way that you show up for yourself and for others around you. It's really about learning to live with truth, even when it costs comfort. Because truth is the only pathway to real love, from her and from yourself. So, as we build this series, and as we're creating the course that walks this out in practice, I want you to know this. You're not broken for wanting love. You're just exhausted from chasing it all this time in places that require you to hide. And that's not your fault. But it is your opportunity. So, where have you traded truth for approval in your life? Let me ask you that. And I'd love for you to drop your response in the comments below if you feel comfortable doing so. Where have you traded truth for approval? And where have you stayed silent just so that you can be liked? Or where have you confused respect for validation? And then let me know what it cost you. Tell me, what are you now reclaiming in its place? And do it not just for me, but for every man who's listening, who needs to know that he's not alone. Because your story might be that permission, like I say, for someone else who needs to stop begging for love and instead to start standing in it. You were never meant to chase respect. You were meant to embody it. And today, that's exactly what you are doing, even listening to this episode. So thank you for wrestling through this with me. I'd love to hear your stories, your experiences in the comments, and also your questions. I'll see you in the next episode.